Hola parceros, ¿cómo están? Soy Wes y bienvenidos a mi canal. He estado aprendiendo español por más o menos 2 meses y media y quiero mostrarte cómo aprendí español en ese tiempo. ¿Listo? ¡Vamos! I'm a professional pianist and music producer who sold all of his things back at home and booked a one-way ticket to Colombia, where I'm now residing in Medellin. I produce all my own music for all of my videos, so if you guys are interested in hearing that, I'll put the link in the description down below. If you guys want to use any of the music for your videos or other things, just shoot me a DM and I'll send you the MP3 royalty-free. After 2.5 months, I've learned quite a lot, and I'm now around a B1 level, so I wanted to share with you guys some tips and tricks that I had when I was still starting out my first week here and I could barely speak any Spanish. Remember, this has been just through my experience learning the language, and feel free to comment below on how you've learned and some tricks that you've picked up while learning the language as well. I think tons of people will be curious about how people learn languages in different countries. So, if you guys are ready, strap on your Spanish sombreros and let's get ready for a ride. This tutorial is if you already know a little bit of Spanish. I'm not going to talk about the basics like como estás, adios, hola, gracias. I'm assuming that you know a little bit of Spanish already, you just don't know how to put it together. So over my time here, I've narrowed it down to 12 words that I feel like are the most important when you're just starting out. So keep in mind that these are shortcuts, these aren't exact definitions, but these are just things that if you're in a pinch and you don't want to fully learn the language, these will help you get by. If you want to see some lessons on this, check out Butterfly Spanish on YouTube. Her videos are really good. She's dorky, but in the best way, and her teaching style is very thorough and very informative. I've sorted these 12 words into tiers. We have tier 1 and tier 2. And tier 1 are the words that I use the most. When I was struggling in the beginning, I would use these words pretty much to form or start every sentence that I had. And these ones are, I guess, a little more advanced. These are important too, but just not as common as those. So let's say you want a super basic, you could probably get by on tier 1, but I recommend learning both. And also keep in mind that these are just ways to start sentences. You still need to know some verbs in their infinitive form. The best thing about these words is that you can use these and just keep verbs in their infinitive form. That way it saves you the hassle of having to conjugate these words, and you can still try to get across what you're trying to say. Alright, let's start off with tengo. Tengo is closer to a TH than it is to a hard T that we have in English. In its basic form, the word is tener, and it means to have. So you can use this, for example, tengo una camiseta, I have a shirt. Tengo un amigo, I have a friend. But it's also very important because you use it to talk about age, about hunger or thirst, how hot and cold you are, and if you're tired. If you want to say how old you are, you say tengo 25 años, I'm 25 years old. If you want to say you're hungry, you say tengo hambre. If you say you're cold, tengo frío. Or if you're hot, tengo calor. And if you're tired, you can say tengo sueño. You could also say estoy cansado, but just to simplify everything, we're just gonna say tengo sueño. Next, let's talk about voy. Voy is a yo conjugation for ir, which means to go. And this is really important because this is your introduction into future tense. It means 2 things. 1, if you're going to a location, like the store or the movies or to a friend's house. Or 2, if you're going to do something in the future. So for example, if you're going to go to the store, you say voy a la tienda, I'm going to the store. Let's say you want to go to your friend's house. Voy a la casa de mi amigo, I'm going to the house of my friend. But let's say you want to do something in the future, I'm going to cook, I will cook. Voy a cocinar, I'm going to eat. Voy a comer. Very basic sentences, but they're still complete. So voy, important. If you're going somewhere, and if you're doing something in the future. Let's talk about necesito. I think necesito is really important because it fulfills 2 purposes. 1, saying if you need something. So if you are at a grocery store and you need to find an item, you say necesito, and then you input whatever item that you want. Or you can say if you need to do something. Another way to say this is tengo que, but that's a little more confusing, and for that you need to have que in there. So just to keep it simple, we're gonna leave it with necesito because they pretty much accomplish the same purpose. Let's say I need to eat, necesito comer. See how I'm keeping comer in its infinitive form? This is why this is really important, because you don't have to conjugate comer. If you conjugate necesito already, you just leave the verb in its infinitive form. Let's talk about soy. So soy is used very often, but it's pretty simple in its uses. The reason why I put it in tier 1 is that people are going to ask you all the time what your name is and where you're from. Most often, where you're from. Especially if you're like me and you don't look like you're from here, they're going to ask you those two things. And no, I don't have the coronavirus. For me, my name is Wesley, so I'll say Soy Wesley. I also say me llamo, but once again, it's a little more complicated. Let's just simplify everything. Or you use this when you say where you're from. So I'm from the United States, so I say Soy de Estados Unidos. Boom, easy peasy. Next, let's talk about quiero. Quiero is nice because it accomplishes 3 things that I think. 1, saying that you want something. 2, saying that you like someone. Or 3, if you want to do something. Let's say I want 1 tomato, an onion, and an avocado. I'll go and say, hola, quiero un tomate, un aguacate, una cebolla por favor. Quiero, and then whatever you want. If you want to simplify it even more, you can just say, quiero tomate, cebolla, y aguacate. You don't need to put the unit of measurement, they'll know what you mean. Secondly, you can say, when you're talking about that you like somebody, te quiero. That means, I want you or I like you. You can say that to any mamacitas you see walking by, baby. Number 3, which means you want to do something. So very similar to necesito, so you put quiero and whatever you want to do in its infinitive form. For example, quiero comer, you want to eat. Quiero descansar, you want to rest. Quiero dormir, you want to sleep. And lastly, let's use puedo. It has 2 main uses, saying you can do something, and this is your introduction to asking a question. Puedo bailar, I can dance. Puedo jugar, I can play. The most important thing to use this for is number 2, which is questions. The most common way that I use it, I'm with my roommates, let's say they have like cookies or something that I want to try as well. Puedo tener una galleta? Can I have a cookie? This is another way to order stuff too if you are at a restaurant or at a store. Let's say you're at a restaurant and you want a hamburger. To be polite, you say, Puedo tener una hamburguesa, por favor? Can I have a hamburger, please? This is a little more proper and it's asking a question, but you can use quiero or puedo. But for most questions, you say puedo, the verb in its infinitive form, and then that's your question right there. Boom, baby. Well, let's talk about I. I is a form of haber, which means to exist. Let's say there are 2 cars. Hay dos carros. There are 2 girls. Hay dos chicas. So you would use this word to say when something exists. That's it. So I personally grouped entiendo and sé together because they kind of fulfill the same purpose, at least right now in your Spanish career. Entiendo means I understand, and sé means I know. Okay, let's say somebody is talking to you in Spanish and you understand most of it or you understand a part of it. A lot of times you can just say sí, sí, sí. But if you want to assert your dominance, use entiendo. 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 I think sé is a good word to know, but it's hard for me to think of a time right now where I would use sé instead of entiendo. If you want to say I know that Spanish is hard, you can say yo sé que español es difícil. But you could also say I understand that Spanish is hard. Yo entiendo que español es difícil. See, it accomplishes the same purpose, so I've grouped them together, just use entiendo. Alright, next, me gusta. Very simple. The reason why I put it in tier 2 is because even though you might use this commonly, it doesn't really accomplish a lot of purposes. For example, you can say you like something. Me gusta comida, I like food. Me gusta Colombia, I like Colombia. If you want to say you like to do something. You could do so, Same thing, same rule applies. Me gusta, word in its infinitive form. Me gusta bailar. Me gusta comer. Me gusta is good, but it's not used as much as necesito or some of the other ones. What's up, party people? It's Fetus West from the future. So creo que has 2 main purposes. 1, sharing your opinion about something, like how you think or how you feel. And 2, an agreement when you're trying to say I think so. So for example, if someone were to ask you, ¿Es esta comida tuya? Is this food yours? You can say, ah, sí, creo que sí. Yes, I think so. But also if you want to share your opinion about something, creo que esta situación es muy mal. I think the situation is bad. Creo que esa mujer es muy linda. I think that girl is very pretty, right? Boom, the 2 uses of creo que. Alright, lastly, let's talk about estoy. I was gonna put estoy in tier 1, but the reason why I put it in tier 2 is that in order to really effectively use this, you have to conjugate words differently than the rest of the words. You can't just leave them in their infinitive form. So I'm going to make a separate video about that. But for now, I'll tell you the 4 basic uses that I've experienced while using estoy. So number 1 is to talk about what location you are in. Number 2 is to talk about a feeling that comes and goes, for example, happiness or sadness. Number 3 is if you're in the act of doing something. And number 4 is to show agreement. So number 1, location. So if someone were to ask you, Oye Wesley, ¿dónde estás? Estoy en la tienda. I'm at the store. Estoy en la casa de mi amigo. I'm in the house of my friend. Number 2 is a feeling that passes. So you hear this most commonly when you're greeting someone. ¿Cómo estás? Right? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Estoy bien. Estoy emocionado. Estoy mal. Estoy triste. These are all states of being that change over time. Number 3 is talking about you're in a state of doing something. So for example, ¿qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? Estoy trabajando. I am working. Estoy durmiendo. I am sleeping. Estoy comiendo. I am eating. The reason why I'm saving this for another video is because you have the infinitive verb, but you have to conjugate it differently than you would other words, and I think that's a little more complex. So for simplicity's sake, don't worry about estoy too much other than location or how you're feeling, or this last thing, which is to show agreement. How you would show agreement in Spanish is not I agree, it's estoy de acuerdo, which means I am of agreement or I am in agreement. That goes back to using estoy as a feeling that comes and changes, because you may agree with something now, but later down the line you may not agree with another thing, right? So you're no longer in agreement, which is why you use estoy. Estoy de acuerdo. I'm of agreement. Perfect. That's all the tips I have for you guys today. Please follow along as I continue to learn this language. But since now I'm currently in the process of learning it from the ground up, I can tell you what has helped me, what works, what doesn't work, and things that are important. So stay tuned next time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Peace. Entiendo.